So who was behind it? How did it happen? And what does this say about the state of cybersecurity in our schools? In this video, we're breaking down the full story of the PowerSchool data breach, from the 19-year-old hacker who pulled it off, to the millions of students whose personal information is now compromised. We'll also talk about the deeper issue no one's addressing, why our schools are becoming prime targets for cyber attacks, and what needs to change. Let's start with what happened. In early 2024, reports began surfacing that a massive breach had affected student information systems across multiple states. The system in question, PowerSchool, a cloud-based platform that manages everything from grades, attendance, and behavioral reports to IEPs, psychological evaluations, and disciplinary records. It's used in over 90 of the 100 largest school districts in the US, which made it a central hub of incredibly sensitive data. That same year, federal investigators traced the breach back to a teenager named Matthew Lane, then 18 years old. Lane had allegedly gained unauthorized access to PowerSchool's internal systems, bypassed admin-level protections, and downloaded an enormous volume of data before being caught. In 2025, now 19, Lane formally agreed to plead guilty to multiple charges related to illegal access and data theft. But what kind of information are we talking about here? This wasn't just usernames and passwords. Lane reportedly gained access to entire student profiles, including personal information, academic histories, behavioral incidents, IEPs for special education students, and in some cases, psychological evaluations. These aren't just numbers. These are the most vulnerable details of a student's life, laid bare by a single breach. The same applied to teachers. Professional records, evaluation notes, email logs, and even internal school communication systems were compromised. For many educators, it was a shocking wake-up call, not just about digital security, but about the sheer scale of what's stored in platforms like PowerSchool. Now let's talk about how this breach actually happened, and why it's raising alarm bells far beyond the courtroom. According to details released in the federal investigation, Matthew Lane didn't break into PowerSchool using advanced malware or sophisticated spyware. He didn't use zero-day exploits or elite hacking tools. In fact, what he did was shockingly simple, and that's exactly what makes it so concerning. Lane exploited known preventable vulnerabilities in how many school districts had configured their PowerSchool systems. These included weak administrative passwords, accounts with excessive permissions, unsecured APIs, and outdated authentication methods. In some cases, it was as easy as finding default credentials that had never been changed, or gaining access through a forgotten admin portal that lacked two-factor protection. In other words, this wasn't a high-tech breach, it was an oversight breach, and it revealed a harsh truth. Many schools are deeply underprepared when it comes to even the most basic elements of cybersecurity. But the story doesn't stop there, because Matthew Lane doesn't fit the typical mold of a cybercriminal. He wasn't working for a criminal organization, he wasn't based overseas, he wasn't selling data on the dark web. He was a 19-year-old, acting alone, driven by curiosity and technical interest. He found cracks in a system that was never properly locked, and he walked right through. Friends and former classmates described him as bright, introverted, and highly skilled with computers. The kind of person who could have built a career in tech, possibly even in cybersecurity. But somewhere along the way, he crossed a very real legal and ethical line. Prosecutors say that Lane's actions disrupted operations in dozens of school districts. Emergency IT audits were triggered. Parents were notified. Sensitive student records, including personal data and behavioral reports, were potentially exposed. And while no evidence has emerged that he sold or distributed the data, the breach alone caused widespread panic. Now, even though Lane is reportedly cooperating with federal investigators, he still faces serious legal consequences, including time in federal prison. Under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, accessing protected systems without authorization, even out of curiosity, is a felony. And with the scale of this breach, the court isn't likely to treat it lightly. This case forces us to ask some difficult questions about how we secure the digital infrastructure of our schools and how we educate young tech talent about the boundaries between skill and crime. Because this wasn't just a failure of one individual, it was a failure of the system, both in how it protected data and in how it prepared someone like Lane to understand the risks of what he was doing. This raises some important questions. First, why are our schools so vulnerable? And second, what does it mean when a 19-year-old can outsmart systems used to manage the lives of millions of children? Let's start with the first. Schools have always been underfunded when it comes to technology, and cybersecurity is no exception. Many school districts lack dedicated IT teams, let alone cybersecurity specialists. Password policies are often weak, software goes unpatched, and network monitoring is minimal. The focus is usually on usability and cost efficiency, not defense. In many cases, data security falls on overworked administrators or third-party vendors. And while companies like PowerSchool do implement safeguards, they often rely on local districts to enforce them, which doesn't always happen. That creates the perfect storm: high-value personal data, centralized platforms, and weak defenses. It's not surprising that cyber attacks on schools have surged. In fact, 2024 saw more cyber attacks against K-12 institutions than any previous year on record. The second question is harder to answer. What do we do when the people breaking into systems designed to protect students are students themselves? The truth is, hacking culture has changed. It's no longer a world reserved for elite coders sitting in dark rooms writing complex scripts. Today, you don't need to be a genius or a professional. With just a basic understanding of how systems work, access to online forums, and a YouTube search bar, almost anyone can learn how to bypass digital security. The barrier to entry has dropped dramatically. Step-by-step tutorials, leaked tools, and public exploits are everywhere. There are Discord servers and Reddit threads dedicated to ethical hacking, and some not so ethical. What used to take years of experience now only takes time, curiosity, and motivation. For many young people, it's not about malice. It's about the thrill of access, the challenge of breaking the rules, or simply seeing what's possible. That's why this case, and others like it, are raising a bigger conversation. How do we guide this next generation of digital natives, many of whom are more tech fluent than the systems meant to protect them? Some educators and cybersecurity experts argue we need to start earlier, as early as middle school, introducing students not only to computers and coding, but to cyber ethics. The goal is to help kids understand the real-world consequences of digital actions. Just because you can access something doesn't mean you should. Respect for systems, data, and digital boundaries needs to be part of a student's education, just like math or language arts. Others take a different stance, arguing that stronger penalties are the only way to prevent this kind of behavior, that if the threat of federal prison or a felony record is clear enough, young people will think twice before crossing that line. The problem is, that doesn't always work, especially when the line between curiosity and criminal isn't clearly taught in the first place. If we only focus on punishment, we miss a bigger opportunity and a bigger problem, because some of the best cybersecurity professionals in the world today got their start breaking into systems, ethically or otherwise. What made the difference wasn't the skills, it was the guidance. Someone stepped in, saw the potential, and redirected it. They taught those individuals how to use their talents to protect, not to exploit. That's what's missing in too many cases. Back to PowerSchool, the implications of this breach are already unfolding. Multiple school districts are reviewing how they store and secure data. Some are hiring third-party cybersecurity firms to audit their systems. Parents are demanding answers about how student data is collected, who has access, and what's being done to prevent this from happening again. It's not just about cleaning up after the fact. It's about regaining trust. PowerSchool itself has responded. The company announced efforts to strengthen their internal security architecture, review their integrations with third-party systems, and provide school districts with better tools and guidance for securing administrator accounts. But critics are skeptical. Many say these updates come too late, after the damage is already done, because at the end of the day, millions of students and teachers had their most personal data exposed. That breach can't be erased. Those records can't be unseen. For some, the fear isn't just about what was leaked. It's about what could happen next. This case has become a flashpoint, not just in cybersecurity, but in how we define accountability, education, and responsibility in the digital age. It's not just a question of who's to blame. It's a question of how we move forward. So what are the lessons here? First, school systems need a serious wake-up call when it comes to cybersecurity. Education technology has grown fast, but security hasn't kept up. That has to change. Second, students need better digital ethics education. If we're giving young people access to powerful tech, we also need to teach them responsibility, boundaries, and consequences. And finally, this isn't just a story about a teenage hacker. It's a story about digital vulnerability in a connected world. As more of our lives, especially children's lives, move online, the stakes are only going to get higher. So what do you think? Should this teen hacker be punished or offered a second chance? And what will it take to make schools truly secure in the age of digital education? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is Tech on the Mind, where technology meets real life, and stories like this remind us that innovation always comes with risk. See you in the next video.